Hello and welcome back to AW Toolbox. In this video, we are talking still a little bit about what's new in Teamcenter 2406, and this time we're going to be isolating into Deployment Center. Now, Deployment Center has come into its own in the last few versions and soon will be the only installation tool available for the Teamcenter product line. So one of the enhancements that Siemens has put forward in the 2406 release is the ability to not only import environments from Teamcenter, we've had that ability for a few releases now, but to make it a little bit easier for you to understand what components are compatible, brought forward, what are missing settings, and so on and so forth. So one of the things that Siemens has added in here is the ability to run validation reports up in the top of this after you do the send environments to DC. So this validation report, if we select it, will generate a validation report for the environment. It'll download that report, which will just be an index.html. And that once it generates, you can launch that report here and see and get an idea of what all is compatible between the environment you imported from TEM, the Teamcenter Environment Manager, and what is critical or still needing to be filled out. So up at the top here, you can see that you've got a scanned environment report on what your environment is, how many machines, we've got our license server and our training box, what software is there, as well as any applications, components, how many scanned features there are, and how many features are mapped to DC. In my case, I have 30 visible features with 36 hidden. I have 19 out of 19 components are 100% configured, 63 scanned features, and 63 scanned features have been migrated over. If I come down a little bit further, I can see there's a required action, DC application not scanned. I can also get an idea of how many warnings are there, which could potentially mess me up, but aren't required to get this to run. And these are missing values in the TIM configuration that I may want to fill out in the Deployment Center configuration once it's imported. If you come down, it'll break it down. I can see what software I have installed. I can see the options, what architecture, whether it's J2EE, whether it's a single environment. I can get an idea of each application. And then over on the right hand side, it'll tell me more information about potential warnings. So for instance, in this case, the Advanced PLM Services Core and in context change elements were not brought in. And if I click this link, it'll tell me what the corrective actions could be by jumping me to the end of the document. So it'll give me ideas as to what I could do. Corrective actions for properties that are missing or application dependencies not scanned include adding them into the TIM and then re-importing the software, selecting Deployment Center and actually updating the components, or if a value is missing in the TIM configuration, going in and adding it to the Deployment Center configuration. So it'll give me an idea of what I can do. Through this report, I can get an understanding of what all I need to correct in the system, and then it will also give me error messages about potential issues that'll block me from importing my environment. In this case, the microservices web tier support is not brought in. So I have an error, DC application not scanned. If I select this, DC application not scanned has not scanned the Deployment Center application itself. Corresponding feature mapping to this application is not supported and installed by the TIM. In other words, in the TIM, we didn't build a J2EE web tier. We had to use the InSweb application to do so, and that's what it's yelling about. With regards to the microservices side, it may be a little different, but there are no corrective actions required because this application is not expected to be supported by the TIM in the configuration Excel, so make sure that this exists in the environment. So some of them are pretty easy, some of them aren't. If I go back to Deployment Center, once you have reviewed that, then made the corrections in the applications or component sections, Siemens has applied this additional button here And this button is essentially complete the environment registration. So after you fill out all your missing passwords and things that have come into the system, you can click this button, and if you still have errors, then it will tell you. And if you don't, then it will register the environment. So if I click OK here, you can see across the bottom, I still have scanning errors. And those scanning errors are relative to things like my temp folder directory for the 2-tier and whatnot. So big enhancement here with regards to Deployment Center as you're sending your configurations into Deployment Center from the TIM. This also helps when you're removing components using the TIM and trying to get your environment back and stable in Deployment Center. In addition to this ability to validate imported environments, Siemens has also provided a pretty cool mechanism that comes along with the Deployment Center environment itself. If I go into my Deployment Center installation, go into my web server or my installation location for Deployment Center, there is a quick deploy component in this environment that you can run that allows you to essentially go in and perform different actions such as saving snapshots off of your environments, rolling back snapshots, and what it does is it essentially uses the quick deploy utility that comes with the tool, and it uses this utility to create a quick deploy XML snapshot file of your environment that you can basically roll back to. This is a really cool feature. It kind of mimics the VM nature of being able to take snapshots and roll back in order to make sure that the changes that you make are stable before actually applying them so that you can roll them back and not have to go one by one through those features to reset them. Now, for the quick deploy tool, go into Deployment Center, Web Server, Additional Tools, and the DC Quick Deploy is right here. Simply extract it in the system, and then once you extract it, go into the folder, and you can see the quick deploy tool is here. If I open up a command prompt to this location, cd to it, and run the dc quickdeploy.bat with a -h argument, it's going to give me a little bit more help. I need to actually spell out help on this one about the tool itself. And one of the things that you're going to note in here is the ability to do snapshots. So snapshots, if you come up a little bit in the output here, the output is a little bit robust here. So I just want to scroll down to it. You can see there's an argument for creating a snapshot. So if I do -create snapshot, it's going to tell me what I need to provide with this. So I need DC username equals DC admin, DC password equals DC admin, DC password or DC comment. I can provide a comment to this, so new training env snap. And then DC URL is going to be my HTTP server 8083 deployment center location. And one of the environments, the environment that I have is the Teamcenter training environment. And if I hit enter, as long as I typed everything correctly, it'll say that DC snapshot created with snapshot 01. Deployment snapshot consists of only Deployment Center data. So what's cool about this is it will actually pump this out. And if we come into the repository, there'll be a snapshot folder right here. The Teamcenter Training 3 location has the snapshot, which is then represented as a quick deploy file that you can import or roll back, etc. So if I run that help against DC Quick Deploy again and scroll up, you can see that I can also delete snapshots. I can list what snapshots are there out of a snapshot file, and I can apply snapshots to the system. So snapshots are a new functionality inside of Deployment Center that you gotta take a little bit of a note of, as it provides you the ability to really make changes on the fly and to be able to roll back or import those changes to an environment altogether. Finally, the last thing that Deployment Center has been updated with is during any type of a deployment or the installation, Deployment Center is going to automatically retry commands a couple of times. Instead of just failing on the first iteration of the command, maybe a service isn't up or something along those lines, Siemens has made it update those. So please check out the newest version of Deployment Center and see how you can make these new features work for you.